now we will have a look at the Option.bind function. And what this function allows us to do is take an option in F# of a particular type and transform that to another type. We're going to see a case now where we have an option of type string and we want to convert that to an integer type. And that could be useful in many applications. So let's say you have, options or values that you get in the form of strings, but they really contain numbers. Then, of course, you want to transfer that in your program to an option based on integers instead. So let's have a look at how we can do that. And first, let me just define a parsing function. This is going to be used to look at a string and try to convert that to an integer. So we would say input, and this would be of type string, like so. And the body of this one would be a simple match statement. Match, and then system dot int 32. So that's what we're going to try and convert this to. And then try parse, like that. And then the input with, so we try to parse our input, and this try parse function, that is a built-in function, would either return true or false. And then if it's true, then we're going to have an additional argument. So let's call that v. We would then transfer this to some v, like that. And if not, then we're going to have false as a return and some other value that we don't care about. And we're simply going to return none here, like that. So this is our parsing function. It takes a string and then it returns an option type of type integer, because if this evaluates a true, the v here will contain the integer, because that's what this function try parse will return. So let's use this function now, and then we're going to see how to use this option bind. So we would have some argument. Let's do none first, and then we would send that to option.bind, and we would provide the try parse function here as a separate parameter for the option bind. So what option bind will do is it will take this none value, send it into the try parse function, which returns another option type, and it assigns that option type to our new value. So we will do this for a few different parameters, but let me first just execute the function definition so that we have that for the future. Let's try this on a couple more arguments, and we would then do sum here. And let's say we have 12 coming in, but this is in string format. So this is the kind of case that I'm highlighting. You have some string that contains a number that you get in, and you want to, of course, convert this to an integer representation of this option type. The last example we're going to have a look at is maybe a string representation of a number like this, just to see what the functionality of this try parse actually is. Okay, so let's execute these one by one and see what we get. If we start sending a none option in, we're going to get none out. So that's not very surprising, because we try to parse none here, and that's simply not going to work. One thing to note is you can see the output type here is now int option. So F# recognizes that we're trying to cast this to an integer, and we get an int option of type none. If we now execute the second one, you can see that we again get int option for the type, but in this case we get sum 12. And you can see the key difference here. What we've been able to do, we've taken a string representation of the number 12 and turned it into an integer representation of 12. And this is now very useful because we can leverage it in our code to do various manipulations. Lastly, let's evaluate this one. You can see that we get none here, and that's because this system int try parse function will not parse 40 like this. It needs to be 40 in the following format. So if I were to send that in, then this would work. You can see that we get sum 40 out. So that's how you use the option bind function in F#.